Assalamu alaikum everybody, this is your host Khkhula. We welcome you to another exciting episode of the Beaconhouse I-9 Podcast Club. We have a very special guest joining us today. She's a distinguished educational leader, trainer, an exceptional author, and a full-time wife and mom.
As the president of CDC, she champions initiatives that drive social progress, empower communities, and foster educational reform.
Please welcome Meeran Malik. Assalamu alaikum, ma'am. How are you?
Walaikum assalam rahmatullahi barakatuh. I'm wonderful. How are you doing?
Were there any defining moments in your life that shaped your passion?
Well, many actually, to start off with. However, if you're focused on the social work that I do, I think that's part of the DNA. I just carry it with me ever since I've been born. I lost my father at a very early age. And as far as I remember, I've seen him extremely generous and extremely helpful. He would extend support, help, resources to whomever and wherever possible. So I think I just carried that in my DNA.
Now, next question we have for you. How would you describe the core philosophy behind your work?
My core philosophy is pretty simple. I drive it from my deen, from my faith. Is the best of the people are the ones who help other people, and they are beneficial to the community. And that's absolutely the defining force. And my target is not to have everything in this world, but to have a substantial bank account for the other world that we will be heading to, the permanent one.
So the next question is that what was the first project or initiative you worked on, and what challenges did you face?
I do not remember of kind of a project. I have been doing this since a very long time, since I was a teenager actually. I think I was barely a teenager even then. But as a project, if you ask me, I think the first one I initiated was a homeschooling program in Pakistan. I initiated it around 15 years back. And that was very exclusive, unique at that time. And the challenging task was people were not ready to accept the fact that you can homeschool a child. So I think overcoming that barrier, bringing that trend in Pakistan and reshaping thoughts, that was the biggest challenge. But alhamdulillah, there are quite a few people, it's a very small percentage, but they do believe in the benefits of homeschooling a child.
Wonderful answer. Now, the fifth question we have, can you share an experience that had a profound impact on you as a social worker?
As a social worker, again, many. However, let me just share one with you. I had this girl, and one day she steps into my school. I run school for the underprivileged children. She was barely 4 years old. And she came into the office all by herself, and she said, I want to study. And I'm saying, "Tum kiske saath aayi ho?" Kehti main khud hi aayi hu. Main kaha, "Acha?" And she had some money in her hand. Kehti mere paas paise bhi hain. Maine kaha, "Acha?" Maine kaha, "Tumhe ghar mein kisi ko pata hai tum aayi ho?" Nahin. I didn't tell anybody. Her father is a sabzi, he would sabzi farosh the, and she said, we are 11 brothers and sisters, and koi bhi hum mein se school nahi gaya, but maine socha hai maine school zarur jana hai, and I have the money also. Well, that was such just an impact, like the power of education. And this little girl was carrying 200-300 rupees and walking herself into a school and saying, "Mujhe padhaye." I think this is one of the very beautiful moments in my life.
Okay, so how do you decide which causes or communities to support?
Well, that's a tough question actually. I do not prioritize, to be honest. Wherever I see there's a need, I speak for it. If there's a need to speak about, these days I'm speaking about animals' rights because I see there's a need for it to advocate that. But there are certain kind of areas that you need to promote and work on it all the time. That is health, that is education, that is community, that is climate change. That is everything that is linked with the community's wellness and health. So yes.
Excellent answer. Now, moving on, what do you think are the most pressing issues with social work that we have in Pakistan today?
It's not over. I don't think there are any social pertaining only to the social work. I think Pakistan on the whole, there are some issues that impact us, whether they're economical, whether they're political. They do have a certain kind of impact on us. If I ask you girls, What do you think is the most important area that Pakistan needs to improve on? What would you say?
I think it's like maybe like nowadays, it's like politics. Like we are like nowadays, like after every day, like there's like a call for a protest, and then like the next day, we're having like a loss for like school days, and like we have off for like next 3 to 4 days, and like online classes, like and online classes, like most of the students, they're like you don't know what are they doing like at like behind the camera.
True that. And what do you think, Paula?
I think the most pressing issue is the educational gap that's been created with all these holidays we've been taking off. Everybody's been focused more on politics rather than what can actually improve our economy and enhance our education.
I'm really happy to be with both of you. Very smart answers. Once I read a quote, I don't remember the exact wordings of Hazrat Ali, but it goes something like that you cannot expect prosperity in a community where there's no justice. And I think the one thing that is lacking in everything in Pakistan, that is justice. Pick up everything. If there had been justice, we wouldn't have been facing such issues, because people get away with things. So in my opinion, it's the lack of justice or the weakness of the justice system that hinders in all our work. Even if we talk about education, we talk inequality, we talk about politics, it's all about that. Or whether if I talk about my own social work, yes.
How do you ensure that the communities you work with have a voice in decisions that affect them?
This is I can have to divide it into 2-3 areas. One of the things that communities at times, you'll be surprised to know that I have worked with a community of 77 households in a community here in Rawalpindi slums. And you know what? They are of the opinion that education has no value. So how do you deal with a community that tells you that education has no value? And why do they say that? It has nothing to do with poverty, because they say that if we send the children to school, we are being deprived of our economic development. Because every child, if I have 6 children, and if I'm sending everybody out to work in the morning, he's at least coming back with 300 rupees per day. So our daily income of 1,500 to 2,000 rupees, we will be deprived of it if we send our children to education. So they don't see any value in education. So that's the kind of very challenging communities that, you have to be persistently working with them, trying to convince them, trying to make them see the opportunities that are linked with education, and so forth.
Now, what has been the biggest challenge you faced in your career so far, and how did you overcome it?
I haven't overcome it yet. My biggest challenge is lack of resources, to be honest. Lack of resources, that remains. There are causes, there are ways that I know that I can contribute better if I had better resources, but I'm working on that, and my pool of human resources is increasing day by day, and of course they benefit me in a very positive manner. Plus, I'm working on building communities and networking, expanding my networking. So that is the biggest resource that I'm working on. I'm still working on it, and every day is a challenge. So I just take it as it comes to me.
If you could leave one lasting message with the audience today, what would that be?
My only message would be for students like you and for the youth by large, as Qaid-e-Azam, what he said, calm or bus calm. The time that you have, that is the biggest resource, and it's a non-renewable resource also. It's not like fossil fuels ka padha hai na aap logon ne. There are some kind of resources that are renewable. There are some they are not renewable. Time ek dafa chala gaya, so chala gaya. You have ample of opportunities, you have ample of talents, and do not keep on focusing on resting. You'll rest in the next other world, that's fine. This world is for you to have some defining principles for your life, stick to them, and keep working. Work to the extent that nobody ever comes close to the benchmark that you're going to create. Create a legacy for yourself.
What suggestion would you give to someone looking to pursue social work or creating meaningful change in the community?
Change can come from anywhere. You don't have to be a social worker. You can be a student, you can be a mom sitting at home. Change can come from anywhere, regardless of its background, where they're coming from. You do not have to adapt that as a profession. You can go as a profession as a social worker. But for me, social work is not my profession. It's something that I do it alongside being an educationist and a trainer. My suggestion would be every person is a social worker within your own domain. So keep doing good. Do your bit. Contribute whatever you have in terms of time, talent, money, capacity, whatever you can contribute. Your ego, your mindset should be a growth mindset. What we have not been taught is to think big. When I was in school, we were not taught to think big. We were taught to be successful, having certain kind of money, which money is important, of course, it's an influence. But we would be more focused on, I'm going to grow up and be this. I will have a car. I will have a bank balance. I will have a big house. It was always about I. So what I want like to see you, this generation, is thinking about we, the we element. When you are growing up, you do not think that, okay, bas maine apne liye ye sab kuch kar lena hai. Think big. This is what I want to see the students are doing. When you're planning your career, do not plan it as a one person. Plan it as a person who's going to create impact on communities globally. Nothing less than that. Nothing less than that. Oh, have you heard that saying? Aim for the moon. Even if you miss, you're amongst the stars. So yes, that would be it.
Okay, so are there any upcoming projects or causes you would like to share to shed light on?
Oh, I'd love to share on so many projects that I have in mind. But one of it is Pehchan Pakistan, and that's very close to my heart. And it has created a lot of impact. It's a contest for students and an inclusive one. Inclusive means that we include the students with special needs on this platform, because they rarely get any platforms. And inclusivity, I would like to advocate more on inclusivity in schools and organizations. One is this. And the other one is, I'm still working on it, that is for the animal welfare, more towards that. Because देखो, majority, we all work for humans. बहुत कम लोग होंगे, बहुत कम होंगे. It's going to be, I don't even think 0.1% of the entire population who devote themselves to be the voice for the voiceless. So these two projects, I'm really hoping to pursue it further and expand it to whatever level I can.
Now, how has social work changed you as a person?
It has changed me tremendously. You will not believe, I used to be such a rebel teenager. I've always been a rebel teenager, being the youngest in the family, the child who's going to get away with everything. And, parents hardly have the energy for the sixth child. They have lost it on the third or the second one already. So I started working. I was barely 17. I used to be in Karachi. So at that time, after your intermediate examination, that is equivalent to your A-levels, we used to have a gap of 8 to 10 months. So I started volunteering in a school for deaf children. And that was the very first time I came across deaf community, people with hearing impairment. I never even realized that can be so many of them, with so many of them. But that is, I think, one of the moments that made me extremely grateful for what I have. Once you start working in institutions and you see everybody else who has not been as blessed as you are, I think that changes you. That had a huge impact on my personality. I stopped being a rebel. I started, more for going for gratitude. And alhamdulillah for that, And one thing, again, I got it from my DNA, is my very positive approach towards life. Nothing puts me down. Absolutely nothing. Every situation I have faced, I have faced it with alhamdulillah. But yes, working with children with special needs, that changed me. And that made me more humble and more focused and more appreciative for all the blessings and all the ni'mat that we have, and we take it for granted. I mean, you, me, we can't even, imagine you can't lift your finger, or you can't just walk, or you can't see, you can't hear. It's just unimaginable for us. And there are people who are suffering, and I think I would love to be voicing for their rights and advocating for whatever resources that they can get from us.
That how do you measure success in your field?
The sad part is that we measure success by how much money that you have, right? So I have been advocating for let's reshape the idea of success. Let's redefine success. It's not only about having money. I think what is for me the success is the amount of people that I interact with, how much my networking expanding, how much approachable I am to different kind of communities, to minorities. That is success for me. Being with you is success for me because I have learned something new about you, about this organization, about a new platform. And that adds me, and that is the kind of intrinsic motivation that I have every morning, not knowing whom I'm going to meet, where I'm going to be. And that's such a lovely pleasure that Alhamdulillah, Allah has always stitched me with the right kind of people, right kind of opportunities. And that is success for me. And success is eventually what is going to be rewarded for me after I leave this world. That is success for me.
All right, moving on, how do you build partnership and collaborations in your work?
It's pretty simple, let me tell you that. Though the words are really heavy, collaborations and all that, it's pretty simple. People to people, person to person. If I want something from Beaconhouse, I will just walk to Beaconhouse and tell them, listen, this is what I'm planning to do. Would you like to collaborate with me? And 90% of people, 90% of organization are looking forward to collaborate with people who are self-motivated and they will do all the work, but they can provide some kind of support. So whenever I want, I just approach any type of collaboration I am looking for. The relevant organization I would go for there and just ask them to support me on a certain cause, and they usually do it.
How do you maintain your motivation and emotional resilience while dealing with difficult situations?
The difficult situations are the only situations that shape you. This is one thing you have to keep in mind. Having even if you're in a school, and I have been working in a school for a very long time, and often the staff and the parents would say, that student is really nasty, बहुत बदतमीज बच्चा है, वो नहीं सुनता, बात नहीं करता, वो homework नहीं करता. This is the moment that tells you how good a teacher you are. If you have a lot of students there, everybody is listening to you, nobody is challenging you, and everybody is perfect. So how are you going to improve on your teaching aspects, right? So what keeps me, what I love facing difficulties. I love overcoming the fact that I am bigger than the difficulty that comes my way. So, and as I told you, I'm incredibly optimistic. It's crazily optimistic. So, I know how to drive the best out of the worst situations I face. So that has been an asset for me. Alhamdulillah for that.
Now, as we wrap up, do you have one message for the students, how we can also impact your work in our lives?
I think I'm relying on the Gen Z. Honestly, I'm relying on you guys that you are the ones who are going to actually build a healthy, right narrative politically, and that is going to shape the entire world. You can see the protests that are happening in the world, worldwide. Who are the ones who are doing it? They are the students. It's not the people at my age. We are the ones who have ruined everything, actually. You are the ones who are going to build the political narrative at a global level. So I'm so optimistic seeing all of you working. And when you talk about social change, I think you are born in the very right era. I mean, being good has become so easy and accessible. Everything is in your phone, actually. And even by liking a cause, it was just a single click, which I call it a digital sadaqah. Like, this is a digital sadaqah. Be pro to it. Every student, maybe you can't go out, you can't protest, you cannot raise your voice, but you are there, you're sitting at home, you have your internet facility there, you have your phone there, you can be socially so vocal and active, you can write, you can advocate, you can support, you can promote. So do the right thing, but pick up your causes very wisely and stop wasting time. There's no time to be wasted. Stay focused and develop that kind of energy. How many of you shop online?
Definitely me, a lot.
Okay, great. So Supposedly, you're looking for hoodies and you go to your Insta and you want to look for hoodies. What happens in seconds? What happens the next time you're on Insta? You'll be flashed with ads for hoodies, isn't it?
Yes.
That's how the algorithm works, right? And this is exactly how the universe works. When you develop a positive thought about anything, it's exactly like that algorithm. Anything positive that is going on in the universe, it's going to attract you. So the more positive you think, the more positive is going to come to you. And this is exactly what our faith and deen tells us. कि Allah वैसा ही है जैसा तुम्हारा गुमान है. What you think of him is exactly, you portray him. आप अगर नेगेटिवली सोचते रहोगे इस मुल्क में तो कुछ नहीं होना, हम तो कहीं नहीं कर रहे, तो वही होगा. You will be facing and you're going to attract such kind of people जो क्रेबी करते रहते हैं, who are never good. For every problem there's a solution. If you're not part of the solution, then you're part of the problem. Be sure of that, right? But I see a lot of hope when I look at the children at your age and I look at the youth. I'm so hopeful that this generation is going to speak. It's going to speak their mind. They're going to, inshallah, they're going to make Pakistan a very proud nation someday. Even if I'm there or not there, but Pakistan is going to be there and at the top ranking globally, inshallah.
So, well, that brings us to the end of today's conversation. I really appreciate you sharing your thoughts and insights with us. It's been such a pleasure chatting with you. Thank you so much for your time and company. And thank you for tuning in, everybody.
Thank you so very much. It was indeed a pleasure being here. Thank you so very much for inviting me.
Thank you so much for joining today's podcast.
We had a great time chatting with our guest. Now this is Khkhula and
Zoha
signing off.